Vince and I just checked off one of our biggest bucket list trips ever.
Greetings from Antarctica. Oh my god.
We embarked on an 18-day expedition cruise that took us from Porto Williams, Chile to the Falkland Islands, South Georgia Island, the Antarctica Peninsula, and across the infamous Drake Passage. It was truly a trip of a lifetime, so stay tuned as I share all the things we experienced and our journey on this 18-day expedition. We sailed with Silversea Cruises on their Silver Wind expedition ship. For this incredible journey, we flew from the US to Santiago, Chile, and included in our package was a one-night pre-cruise stay at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Santiago. Silversea arranged all our transfers from the hotel to the airport and all our flights. Our first flight was from Santiago to Porto Arnes, Chile, and then from Porto Arnes, we took a short hopper flight to Porto Williams, which is the most southernmost town in South America. No, it's not Ushuaia.
We made it!
And from there is when we boarded our ship and set sail. We stayed in a deluxe veranda suite on deck 6, room 639 to be exact. Very nice room, and we loved having a balcony. Our first 2 days were at sea, which we enjoyed some relaxation after all the travel yesterday, and we just kind of got in the groove of the expedition and learning the ship. With 15 to 20 foot waves, it was off to a rough start as we made our way to the Falkland Islands. But thankfully, Vince and I don't get seasick, but let me just tell you, not everyone on the ship was so lucky. There was a lot of people who were seasick from these waves, so this is your reminder right now to bring all the pills, patches, or wristbands that you need to stay well, as Mother Nature is unforgiving. The first stop on our cruise was to the Falkland Islands, where we had 2 landings today. The first landing was a wet landing in New Island, which meant taking a Zodiac to shore. Silversea provided us with essentials like parkas, water bottles, and waterproof bags. And yep, we get to keep all these. They also offer rental gear like waterproof boots, pants, and gloves. We decided to rent these items so we could save space in our carry-ons. For packing, we focused on moisture-wicking base layers, wool outer layers, thermal pants, and long socks, perfect for staying warm and dry. So if you're curious what gear we brought, I've added all the links in the description below.
We are all suited up here for our first excursion here in the Falkland Islands, New Island. And this is the parka that we get from Silversea's. It's ours to keep. These are some of the wind pants that we did order. These are Marmot pants. And then we just wear our tennis shoes to the mudroom because that's where they store all our boots. And then this is the life jacket for the Zodiac. So we're all warm and geared up and ready to take on the Falkland Islands.
There was only one main activity here, which was a stunning mile-long bird walk across the island to see the sea cliffs on the other side. These cliffs were home to some incredible wildlife, including geese, imperial cormorants, albatross, and the adorable rockhopper penguins. Fun fact, the Falklands are one of the very few areas in the world where you'll even find these little rockhopper penguins. Aren't they just the cutest? To make things even more special, both the penguins and the albatross were in the middle of nesting season, so there was baby chicks everywhere. After New Island, we cruised to our second landing of the day, which was West Point Island. This one was a dry landing, but we still had to take a Zodiac to reach the pier. Once on the island, we enjoyed a scenic 1.2 mile walk to the other side, where we were greeted with even more nesting albatross and an abundance of baby penguins. It was absolutely adorable to see so many chicks up close. So what makes West Point Island extra special is that this island is privately owned. And to our surprise, the owner welcomed us into their charming little farmhouse where we got to enjoy tea and freshly baked scones. It was such a cozy and unexpected treat. I can definitely say our first stop on the cruise of the Falkland Islands did not disappoint. On day 4, we were actually scheduled to visit Port Stanley, the capital of the Falkland Islands. However, Mother Nature had other plans. Upon arrival, we were met with 50 to 60 mile-an-hour winds. Unfortunately, it wasn't safe to launch our Zodiacs from the ship, so we weren't able to go ashore. However, we just adjusted our course and began onward. So here's the silver lining with this happening. By leaving the Falklands a day early, we aim to arrive ahead of schedule, which will give us one extra day on South Georgia Island. So during these 2 days at at sea, we relaxed and recharged, and we took advantage of the ship's self-service laundry, which is such a convenient feature for guests, especially since it's free. It made packing light for our trip so much easier. As I mentioned, we left the Falkland Islands ahead of schedule due to high winds, and that turned out to be a blessing in disguise. This was a huge bonus for us because South Georgia Island was one of the main highlights we were looking forward to when choosing our Antarctica itinerary. So upon arrival to South Georgia Island, we were greeted with massive icebergs and breathtaking mountain backdrops. It felt like we entered a different world. Our first stop here was King Haakon Bay. Not long after arriving into the bay, the ship dropped anchor and the crew began unloading the Zodiacs. It was time to get out on the water and experience this stunning environment up close. As we cruised the shore, we spotted king penguins, gentoo penguins, and some elephant seals. Our first glimpse of the incredible wildlife that South Georgia Island is known for. Today was our first full day in South Georgia Island, and it was set to be a big one. We woke up to stunning sun-kissed shores as our ship anchored in Salisbury Plain, home to one of the largest king penguin colonies on the island.
We are headed out on another Zodiac cruise on Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
The Zodiac started unloading around 6:30 a.m. and the first groups were on the water by 7 a.m. Our original plan was to go ashore, but two unexpected issues prevented that. First, avian flu has become a very significant issue on the island, and upon arrival, the crew observed way too many signs of affected wildlife, making it unsafe for us to disembark. And the second reason was there was simply just way too much wildlife on the shore. There was no way for them to create a clear pathway without disturbing the animals, as the beaches were completely packed with penguins, seals, and other species. So instead, we had an incredible 2-hour Zodiac cruise along the shore. Our guide even shared that the effects of avian flu were even more noticeable in the seals than the birds, as it seems to be mutating to other species, which is very scary. During our Zodiac, the penguins were just as curious about us as we were about them. We had king penguins swimming around us, diving under our Zodiac, and even came close to jumping in our boat at one point. It was magical to watch these beauties up close. The stunning backdrop of the mountains mixed with all the wildlife made for such a beautiful morning experience. After our adventure at Salisbury Plain, we made our way to Hercules Bay for another exciting Zodiac cruise. Hercules Bay has a completely different vibe and landscape compared to Salisbury Plain. Here we were surrounded by rugged cliffs covered with green moss and lichens, giving the area an almost otherworldly feel. There were sea caves and a stunning waterfall that cascaded down from the mountains, adding to the dramatic scenery. One of the highlights here, we spotted a new species of penguin, the macaroni penguins. These quirky little birds are impossible to miss with their wild yellow hairdos paired with their striking red eyes. They were perched on the cliffs and hopping around, adding a playful energy to the scene. Today was extra special because we had our very first landing.
Merry Christmas from
Merry
South
Christmas.
Georgia. We are officially on land today. We Zodiaced in and
Snowing.
here we are. We got sea lions and some king penguins down that way. It's a white Christmas from us.
We arrived in Grytviken, the largest settlement on South Georgia Island. As we stepped ashore, we were met with tons of fur seals and their adorable pups, along with a beautiful group of king penguins.
Christmas with penguins. They're so beautiful.
But Grytviken also has a dark past. This settlement was once the largest whaling station on the island, operating from 1904 to 1965. The remnants of the whaling operation are still visible today, with rusting equipment scattered across the shore as a stark reminder of its history. During its peak, over 175,000 whales were killed in this bay, turning the waters red with blood. Many of the whalers who worked here were buried here on the island in the Grytviken Cemetery, alongside the famous explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton. Also here in Grytviken, there was a small Norwegian church built by the whalers, which still stands today. In the afternoon, we embarked on a Zodiac cruise to explore two other historic whaling stations, Stromness and Leith Harbor. Due to safety concerns, including the presence of asbestos and structurally unsound buildings, going ashore onto these sites was strictly prohibited. But despite not landing, we quickly observed that wildlife has reclaimed these abandoned stations and made their homes here. Today Today marks day 4 of our time here in South Georgia, and it feels like we truly saved the best for last. Today we stepped foot on St. Andrews Bay, home to the largest king penguin colony on all of South Georgia. If you've ever watched Frozen Planet 2, this is the very location where parts of the penguin footage is filmed, and it's easy to see why. This bay is home to over 500,000 king penguins that stretch from the shores all the way up into the base of the mountains. Unlike Salisbury Plain where we were a few days ago, we couldn't go ashore due to the abundance of wildlife blocking the pathways, but here in St. Andrews Bay we were able to safely land on one side of the colony. From here we were able to walk alongside these beautiful birds in their natural habitat. The views were absolutely breathtaking. Since it was still molting season, we saw some fluffy penguins still shedding their old feathers. Among the penguins we spotted giant elephant seals lazily lounging on the shores, as well as fur seals darting around. As we made our way back to the Zodiacs, there was a bittersweet feeling as we realized this will be the last time we walk among the kings. Before we begin our journey to Antarctica, our expedition leader surprised us with one final stop, the breathtaking Drygalski Fjord. This narrow fjord is notoriously challenging to navigate, so we felt extremely lucky to have the perfect conditions to enter it today. The ship had to weave through these towering icebergs to enter, and once we got inside, we were surrounded by glaciers and massive fjords towering on each side. The captain opened up the bow of the ship, allowing us to step out, and we got to watch chunks of ice floating gently by, and to our surprise, we had whales. There was about 5 of them swimming through the icy waters along the edge, but then we had one come right next to the ship and make his appearance.
That was right there.
Did it, the tail hook?
No, he's right there.
Oh my god.
Wow.
It's too slippery.
Very nice.
It truly blows my mind being able to see how large these animals are up close. And now it's time to say goodbye to South Georgia. This part of our journey has been nothing short of extraordinary and has definitely left an incredible mark on our hearts. Next stop, Antarctica. After spending 2 days at sea traveling from South Georgia, we finally arrived at our first stop in Antarctica, Elephant Island. However, due to strong winds, we weren't able to disembark on the island itself. However, our ship was able to get close enough for us to see the dramatic mountain landscape of Wild Point. This historic location is where 22 men from Shackleton's endurance expedition were rescued. There's even a memorial statue here on the island honoring the men. From Wild Point, we cruised around Elephant Island and we're surrounded by an abundance of whales.
Oh my gosh. It scared me.
From humpbacks to fin whales, their spouts were visible all around us. We were even treated to some sightings of chin-strap penguins. So even though we couldn't go ashore, we warmed up in the outdoor hot tub and enjoyed some lunch from the outdoor grill area. Today we arrived at Deception Island, a recently active volcano located just off the Antarctica Peninsula. What makes this place so unique is that the ship can actually sail right into the middle of the caldera of the volcano itself. Our first stop in the caldera was Whalers Bay. This volcano last erupted in 1969, and even today the ground remains warm and steamy. Thankfully it wasn't too hot for us to safely launch the Zodiacs and explore on foot. Whalers Bay also has some sombering history, as it was also a Norwegian Chilean whaling station that was established in 1906. This site was used to boil down the whale carcasses and extract the oil, a grim practice that took place here for decades. We took a short hike to the rim of the caldera where we were treated to some stunning crescent-shaped views of the volcano's rugged shores. Another highlight on this stop was our first close-up and encounter of chin-strap penguins. These adorable little penguins are easily recognized by the distinct black line under their chins. Watching them waddle around and interact in their natural habitat was absolutely a joy. After our stop in Whalers Bay, our cruise made a short 5-mile journey to the other side of Deception Island, bringing us to Telephone Bay. Here we embarked on another scenic hike, making our way to the rim of the volcano. The hike rewarded us with some stunning panoramic views of the surrounding landscape. At this stop as well, there was more small groups of penguins. This time there was a mix of chinstraps and Gentoo penguins. Although this is our third day in Antarctica, today truly felt like Antarctica. We woke up to a breathtaking panorama of snow-drenched mountains, glacier-filled waters, and towering icebergs. But what made this morning unforgettable was that our ship suddenly became surrounded by pods of orcas, literally in every direction.
We are literally surrounded by orcas, humpback whales, penguins, It's wild. Every direction there's orcas and whales, humpbacks. It's beautiful.
At around 9:30 a.m., the zodiacs were lowered and we were set off to cruise these icy waters. This is when the sheer scale of icebergs truly came to life. From the zodiacs, the towering ice formations felt absolutely massive. And if that weren't even enough, we were then treated to some humpback whales that appeared right in front of our zodiacs. They surfaced close by, showing off their tails as they slapped the water. It seemed as if though they were playing. But then as we returned to the ship, we went back to our stateroom to get ready for lunch, but the whales were not done with us yet. Two humpbacks came right up to our ship, right below the balcony of our stateroom, as if they wanted to put on one last show for us. Such an incredible experience. In the afternoon, we headed to St. George Bay for another Zodiac cruise and exciting landing. This moment was extra special because our feet officially touched the continent of Antarctica, our sixth continent. It's a huge milestone for us, and this day just kept getting better. During our scenic cruise through the brash ice and towering icebergs, we spotted something extraordinary: a female leopard seal basking on an iceberg. This was a rare and thrilling sight. Our guide mentioned it has been years since they've last seen one of these beauties, making this encounter all more significant. After admiring the leopard seal, we cruised along the shore to observe the large Gentoo penguin colony that calls St. George Bay home. One thing we've learned on this journey is never miss a Zodiac cruise or landing. Every time we step off the ship, it's been truly a rewarding experience. Yesterday ended with an incredible Zodiac cruise and landing, and this morning began very much the same way. This time we were in Nico Harbor. The wildlife seemed to be kind of sleepy today, so we didn't spot any seals, but the penguins were, of course, out and about. For our landing, we visited a charming Gentoo penguin colony. They were as delightful as ever to watch. Adding to the drama of the morning, we witnessed some glacier calving, a breathtaking sight as chunks of ice broke off and thundered down into the icy waters below. Our afternoon was all about the infamous polar plunge, a bucket list experience for many adventurers. However, not for us. That was a hard pass. It wasn't just the water temperature hovering just above freezing that made us pause, but it was also the spicy conditions of 30-knot winds. So it was a hard no from us. We just watched from our balcony and cheered all the brave souls on. Today marked day 16 on this trip, and sadly it's our last day in Antarctica before we begin our journey back to Port Williams, Chile. On our final stop, we went to South Shetland Islands, and we kicked off the morning with a visit to Half Moon Bay. After a short Zodiac cruise to the landing site, we stepped ashore and took in the sweeping views of the crescent-shaped bay, and a very lively chinstrap penguin colony. This is when the realization hit us that this will be the last time we ever step foot on Antarctica again. Probably in our entire lifetime we will never be back here. So definitely a bittersweet moment for us. The final 2 days of our cruise were spent crossing the infamous Drake Passage, the stretch of ocean between Antarctica and the southern tip of South America. This passage has earned its reputation as one of the roughest seas in the world, and we can absolutely confirm it. The journey back to Chile was far from smooth, with the ship rocking and swaying constantly for 2 days straight. The Drake Passage was no joke. This trip was hands down one of the best adventures we've ever taken. Its wild remoteness made an experience unlike any other. If you're researching your own Antarctica itinerary, I want to give you our conclusion of this trip. If your goal is to simply say you've been to Antarctica, step foot on the continent, see those beautiful icebergs, glaciers, and smaller penguin colonies, then a cruise focused to the Antarctica Peninsula will definitely accomplish that. However, if you are passionate about wildlife and you want to see those massive king penguin colonies of over 500,000, you must include South Georgia in your itinerary. That is the only place in the world where you will ever see that. South Georgia is truly the mecca of wildlife. Even our guide said that the sheer abundance and diversity of life there simply cannot be matched by what you would see in Antarctica alone. But please keep in mind, no matter what you end up choosing for your Antarctica itinerary, this place is special. You will get an incredible experience no matter what. Now, just a few things I want you to keep in mind as you watch this vlog. Antarctica is unpredictable in every sense of the word. From the ever-changing weather to wildlife encounters to avian flu outbreaks, it all affects the plans. The itinerary can change in moments, so flexibility is key, and be sure to come open-minded. Overall, our cruise with Silversea was a 10 out of 10. The staff, the expedition team, and every single aspect of the journey exceeded our expectations. They went above and beyond to make sure this once-in-a-lifetime trip truly was remarkable. So with that said, thank you so much for following along. I hope this vlog was helpful as you plan your own trip to Antarctica. It's a journey like no other, and I hope you can experience its magic yourself. If you have any questions, of course, let me know down in the comments, and thanks so much for watching.